All right, so, imagine this. You're putting together a team to tackle a big project, something that needs like a ton of creativity, and everyone needs to work together. Who do you pick? Like, do you want people from different backgrounds with different expertise? Or do you just stick with people who pretty much think alike? And then how do you even structure how they communicate? These are questions that leaders are always dealing with. And today we're going to take a deep dive into some research that gives some pretty surprising answers.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about this? There's a research paper that came out in Nature Computational Science, and they actually tested this stuff. Like, they did experiments with hundreds of people to see how, the structure of the team and how diverse it is affect the whole creative process.
So we're not just going off gut feelings anymore or the latest management trends. We're going right to the data.
Exactly. And what they found really challenges some of the stuff we usually think about teamwork. So, a lot of times we think the more people talk, the better. But what this study found is that teams where everybody could talk to everybody else, those teams had less diverse ideas.
So is it like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing? Spoiling the creative soup?
It kind of seems that way. It might be that, when everyone is always giving their opinion, it leads to focusing on certain ideas too early, and then you don't explore different possibilities as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're always hearing other people's ideas, it's hard to take a step back and think about other ways of doing things.
Right, and it's not just about the number of ideas, right? It's also how good they are. The study found that teams with a certain type of diversity, they called it assortative mixing. Those did really well.
Assortative mixing. That sounds a bit technical. Can you break that down?
Basically, it means they put people with similar backgrounds together, at least at first. So, like having a group of engineers, a group of marketing people, that kind of thing. This let them explore ideas within their own areas of expertise before they had to work with the rest of the group.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying if you give people the chance to talk with other people, in their own field, that can lead to more diverse ideas overall.
Exactly. And the study showed that this way of doing things actually came up with more creative solutions than just mixing people randomly.
So, if you're managing a brainstorming session, it might actually be good to break your team up into smaller groups based on what they're good at. Let them explore ideas on their own for a bit, and then bring everybody back together.
That's a great point. And this shows something really important from the research. If you want to encourage creativity, it's not just about having different people on your team. It's about how you set up how they interact with each other.
It's almost like diversity is a resource. You have to manage it strategically. It's not just something to check off a list.
Exactly. And this research gives us some real strategies for doing that.
Okay, I can see how this research could really change how teams work. But how do they even measure creativity in this study? That seems pretty hard to put a number on.
They had a really smart way of doing it. They gave people two different kinds of tasks, both designed to get them thinking creatively. One was a classic brainstorming thing, come up with catchy slogans for a new laptop.
Oh, I bet that got pretty competitive.
I'm sure it did. And then they also had people write short stories. That's more of an individual creative thing. Then they used a combination of experts and, computer algorithms to judge how diverse and how good the ideas were.
So they used both human intuition and the hard data.
Exactly. And what's even cooler is that they didn't just look at the final product. They also measured people's experiences through surveys, tried to understand how different team structures affected things like how satisfied people were and what they learned.
It's like they were looking at creativity from all sides, not just the end result.
Right. And looking at it that way led to some really interesting findings that we'll talk more about in a bit.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked. I'm ready to hear more about what they found and how we can use it to build teams that are more creative and actually get things done.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we talked about how the structure of a team can affect how many different ideas they come up with. But how about how good those ideas actually are? Did the study find anything about that?
Yeah, that's where things get even more interesting. They found that when it came to having the single best idea for that slogan task, it was the randomly structured teams that did the best.
Wait, so not the assortative teams, the ones with the focused expertise, not the fully connected teams where everyone's talking all the time. The random ones did the best.
I know, right? It seems kind of crazy. But it could be that random teams have a good balance. They have enough diversity to get those new ideas going, but also enough interaction to refine them and make them better.
So maybe you need that first burst of different thinking from the assortative groups. But then you need to mix things up a bit, get some other perspectives in there to really turn those ideas into something awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking the best parts of both. And here's another interesting thing. When they looked at the average quality of the ideas, it was the disassortative teams that were the best.
Okay, remind me. Disassortative means?
Disassortative teams are where you put people with totally different backgrounds together on purpose. So an engineer working directly with a marketing person or a designer with a data scientist. And in this study, those teams always came up with good ideas, even if they didn't always have the very top score.
So if you're a manager and you want consistent quality across the board, maybe shaking things up with this disassortative approach is the way to go.
It's definitely worth thinking about. It seems like having to really work through those different viewpoints and find something everyone agrees on, it forces you to, refine things more.
This research is full of surprises. It really makes you rethink what you thought about how to build good teams. But before we, go crazy applying all this stuff, didn't they also have people do a more individual task?
Well, this is where the idea of task dependency comes in. The impact of team structure and diversity wasn't as big for the story writing.
Because it was more of a solo thing.
Yeah. If people are working on their own, the benefits of carefully structuring how they're connected and what their backgrounds are might not matter as much.
So it's kind of like using the right tool for the job, right? You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, and you wouldn't necessarily need a super structured team for something people could do well on their own.
It all comes back to being intentional. As a leader, you got to understand what the task is and then set up your team in a way that makes sense for that.
This is all really interesting, but I gotta say, I'm still stuck on that thing about random teams having the best single ideas. It feels, I don't know, almost too random.
I get what you mean, but what if we think about it a little differently? Instead of seeing randomness as this chaotic thing, maybe we can see it as a chance for serendipity.
Ah, okay, I think I see what you're saying. It's like those stories about scientific discoveries that happen by accident, right? You can't always predict what combination of ideas is going to lead to a breakthrough.
Exactly. Maybe we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss those chance encounters and unexpected connections. A lot of times the most innovative ideas come from those moments.
So instead of trying to control every little detail of how a team is formed, maybe we should focus on creating an environment where those aha moments can happen more easily.
There you go. That's a challenge for all the leaders and managers out there listening.
For sure. So how do you actually create a space where those light bulb moments are more likely to happen?
Well, one way is to encourage people from different departments to collaborate, even if they're not officially on the same team.
So setting up events or workshops where people from different areas can meet and talk?
Exactly. Think about things like social events, workshops, even just casual chats in the break room. Those informal interactions can lead to connections and ideas you'd never get from a planned meeting.
It's about building a culture where people are curious and open to new things, where they feel okay sharing their thoughts, even if they seem a little out there.
That's a big part of it. You want people to feel safe sharing their ideas without being judged or made fun of.
And it's not just about giving people the chance to interact, it's also about giving them time to think about those interactions afterwards.
That's so important. We often rush from one meeting to the next without giving ourselves time to really process what we've learned and let those new connections sink in.
It's like we're always planting seeds but never giving them the time to sprout.
Perfect analogy. So maybe we need to build in more white space into our schedules, time for thinking, for casual conversations, for letting our minds wander and make those unexpected connections.
And maybe we need to rethink our physical spaces too, right? Could the design of our offices actually help or hurt those serendipitous encounters?
Absolutely. Imagine a workplace with open, inviting, common areas that are designed to encourage those chance meetings and informal gatherings.
It's almost like designing for serendipity, creating an environment where those creative collisions are more likely to happen.
And don't forget about technology. It can help connect people on remote teams or even people in different departments within the same office.
It's about using technology to boost human connection, not replace it.
Well said. I think we're starting to get a picture of what a truly innovative and collaborative work environment could look like.
It's an environment where structure and serendipity can both exist, where different perspectives are valued, and where people feel like they can share their ideas and make those unexpected connections that lead to breakthroughs.
I love that vision. And I think the research we've been talking about gives us a way to get there.
I agree. It's like a call to action for leaders, managers, and everyone else to rethink how we see teamwork and to really embrace the power of diversity, structure, and serendipity to unlock our creative potential together. So we've talked about team structure and diversity and serendipity, but I keep thinking about how this research might apply to other kinds of teams. We've mostly talked about creative tasks, but what about teams that are working on stuff that's more analytical, like software development or financial modeling, do these same ideas still apply?
That's a really good question. And it gets at like the bigger implications of all this. The study focused on creative tasks, but those basic principles of how team structure and diversity affect how people interact and what they produce, that could be important in a lot of fields.
So even in a field like, say, software development, where technical skills are so important, having a mix of different perspectives could lead to better solutions.
It definitely could. Think about it. You could have a team of amazing programmers, right? But if they all have the same background and the same way of solving problems, they might miss some solutions that someone with a different perspective would see right away.
So a more diverse team might be able to catch bugs or see potential problems that a less diverse team would miss.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just technical stuff, too. Different personality types, different ways of working, even different cultural backgrounds. All of that can contribute to a better understanding of a problem and a wider range of potential solutions.
This research really makes you think differently about how to build teams. It's not just about filling slots, it's about creating this dynamic mix of perspectives and experiences.
I like that. It's like growing a team that can adapt, that's tough, and that can approach problems from all different angles.
And as work gets more complex and everything's so connected these days, that kind of adaptability is going to be even more important.
Absolutely. This research points to a future where teams are more flexible, more responsive to change, and better at using the strengths of diversity.
That's an exciting thought. But I also wonder about the challenges. Managing a team with so many different viewpoints, that can't be easy.
That's true. Leaders are going to need new skills and strategies to handle the complexity of diverse teams. They'll need to be good at encouraging communication, resolving conflicts, and creating a shared sense of purpose.
It's a lot to ask, but I think it's worth it. The potential benefits are huge.
I totally agree. This research shows us a glimpse of what's possible when we go beyond those old ways of thinking about teamwork and embrace the power of diversity, structure, and serendipity.
It's like an invitation to try new things, be open to new ideas, and create workplaces where creativity, innovation, and human connection can thrive.
And it reminds us that the journey is just as important as the destination. Building and growing a diverse, high-performing team, that's a learning process. It's full of surprises, challenges, and, in the end, rewards.
So to all you leaders, managers, and team members out there, we hope you take these ideas to heart. Think about how you can use them with your own teams, and don't be afraid to experiment, to try new things.
You might be surprised at what you find.
And that's it for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the science of teamwork with us. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep pushing the limits of what we can achieve together.